it wasn't misused under the common use of the word, but the legal interpretation required it to be a willful misuse of the emblem in order to perfidiously make some wrong impression, and this was not the case here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Remaining with the unfortunate events at the harbour, perhaps the NRA can explain what they thought they were doing. Mr. Weinstein?
Thank you very much. With regards to, I would like to address the mortar attack from the perspective of the NRA. That mortar fire was intended to create a decoy, therefore a ruse of war. It was done to allow other members of our forces to enter the port from the other side. Ruses of war, as we know, are not prohibited under customary international humanitarian law. This is according to the Libra Code, the Hague regulations. It is well known that humans in
Ruses of war that destroy several civilian structures and civilian goods.
Well, the collateral damage is unfortunate, but with regards to our intentions,
What was the military objective if you're talking about collateral damage?
to confuse the enemy, and it was again.
That's the military objective.
Well, as part of
Broad
our
interpretation, like your broad interpretation of attack.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As part of our entire military objective for what we had to do, yes.
Right. Extremely broad interpretation.
Madam Chairman, sorry, on the bombing of
Wait a minute. A ruse of war is an act which is intended to mislead an adversary, but which infringe no rule of international law applicable in armed conflict. So you can't use it to justify what would otherwise be an unlawful attack, can you?
From our perspective, Mr. Chairman, we don't see it as an unlawful attack. It was intended to deceive the enemy, and from our standards, we don't see it as violating any of the standards of international humanitarian law.
But what do you think?
No, go ahead.
Just get
Let's
on with it.
imagine that you decided to bomb, I don't know, children, school or something like that, to distract the enemy. Would that be lawful then?
Mr. Chairman, I object to
It is exactly the same question.
I object to the notion. We obviously used precaution and understood the direction of the area that the mortar shell was fired in, and with
Which is a civilian port.
Which you didn't know exactly, Western End. You had no precise objective. Is that what you're saying?
As was reported to us by our forces, it was done as a ruse. It was part of the battle area, and from our perspective, lost immunity from protection.
It lost immunity, but you launched the attack. You launched the attack, didn't you? So you made the decision that it lost protection. Is that what you're saying?
The fact that the military objective was in the area, collateral damage is unfortunate.
So the whole port, because in one part on the other side of the port, because you actually wanted to get to the other side of the port, right? So the whole port was a military objective, because on one end of it, you had something that you could attack.
Well, we did not attack the whole port, Mr. Chairman. However,
No, but you attacked two ends, huh?
Yeah.
Boom here, go in there.
Again, as a ruse of war, and as reflected in the NATO as reflected in the NATO bombing campaign, the NATO forces, again, I'll mention, did bomb bridges that were nowhere near the action, and actually civilians were killed. So
It is because they had a dual use, eh? Dual use. Dual.
dual use.
Dual.
Thank you. Dual use, however, was nowhere located near the actual where the combat was taken.
And there were lots of people that complained about this. It wasn't exactly appreciated, huh? Aldio was one of them. He wrote an article on this. Not a very good one, but never mind.
Just to add and clarify, we believe that the nature, use, and location of the port was of strategic importance for our military objectives, and therefore we believe it was lawful. And if you would like, we could elaborate on the actual warehouse incident.
Please.
Thank you.
Briefly, please.
With regard to the bombing of the warehouse, as was mentioned by the distinguished representative of the Saudi government, a military objective is military objectives are by their purpose or use make an effective contribution to the military actions with total or partial destruction in the circumstances, ruling at the time offer a definitive military advantage. Therefore, the warehouse where the munition was held is a military objective, therefore constitutes a legitimate military target.
Thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Oh, right, all right. One small one. I never get to ask questions. No. I'll ask a question. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to ask the representatives of Perotti what they thought about the argument that the characterisation of the conflict changed on the 5th of May. It became an international armed conflict.
I will address this, Mr. Chairman. We believe that the condition laid down by our colleagues wasn't fulfilled. They stated that the recognition was given to the government. I believe that the Bantustans in South Africa gave the same recognition by 3 states, but no one will claim that they were indeed states capable to engage in international conflict. In addition, we are well aware that the principle of the sanctity of the borders is a well-known customary international law. It was reflected in the Burkina Faso versus Mali International Court of Justice case.
Well, that's uti possidetis, which I'm not quite sure is.
That's right, but the first time I told it, they told me that Latin is not to use it if I'm not saying it right. And
Put it in there. Just like in Italian. Only
I see we have a critic in the audience. Perhaps we should finish your argument then.
Thank you.
Someone's got a question. Judge?
It is on the same question, but directed towards the other party. I'm not quite sure what you're making of the argument of all the Geneva Conventions and things apply. You were not the high contracting party of the Geneva Conventions. What do you make of the state secession argument and so on?
Well, as we have declared in the beginning, on the evening of 5th of May, we have declared a status, and as we proved in the beginning, we do fulfill the 4 conditions of the Montevideo Condition unstated, as well as recognition.
Isn't it generally considered the case that in order necessary when a secessionist movement claims that it has established a state, that they not only establish but they also maintain their independence over a period? And given that this state or entity was wiped out within about a month and a half, surely that argues rather against you.
Well, the international community and the state of Perotti should be very happy that we decided to adhere to the highest principles of humanitarian law at that point.
Well, that's a policy argument, isn't it? I only do law. Anyway,
Yes, I think that you can't understand.
yeah, well, maybe that, Judge. But anyway, thank you for that very kind remark. I'm so glad I've retired from the bench. Anyway, we must, I think, wind up now. So I will call on the representatives of Perotti. You have 2 minutes to give us your final argument. So what should we conclude?
As the dog issue has come up, we will refer to that shortly and then conclude. Please, Dr. Borel.
about the dog.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss. According to the use of dog, and we will do it very shortly. The use of dog had one specific aim: to use their exceptional capability to smell in order to locate the NRA members. Of course, the aim wasn't to exploit the fear of dogs, and we know that such use will be an abuse of the mean, and it was criticized on several occasions, and in particular in the Human Rights Watch criticism about the United States use of dogs in the Abu Ghraib prison. So as we stated, the aim was the smell and not other aims.
Thank you. We'd just like to conclude by saying that we look forward to a cooperation, and we hope that, first of all, that the classification of the conflict will be set correctly, as we stated before, as it has significant effect to the applicable law. And thank you, and we believe in the mandate of this committee. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you very much. Then in that case, let's hear from the representatives of TCP and the NRA. What do you want us to conclude? You have 2 minutes.
We would like to once again emphasize that the means and methods of warfare are not unlimited, and one has to take that into consideration, especially when we're talking about chemical weapons and the use of the dogs. We believe also that some war crimes have been identified, such as the use of chemical weapons, and that therefore we believe it is up to the chairman and Madam Chairman to maybe refer to the ICC for further criminal proceedings. We would also like to thank for this Reconciliation Commission to bring justice to the area, and would like to stress again the role of the League of Grammarian States in also bringing justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we've actually finished on time for a change, so I thank representatives of both parties for allowing us to do so, and we will now take what you've said into account, and it will inform our conclusions, which obviously we have a series of hearings we will issue in due course. Thank you all. Thank you.
Take some time to reach a decision. There'll be a reception outside, and we reconvene in an hour's time. Is that correct? In an hour's time, 7:30.